Good afternoon and welcome to the July 28th public hearing on the millage rate. I see our high sheriff in the crowd. Thank you again for being here, and maintaining to hear from Bob Sheriff. Fire chief, you're not elected, but thank you for being here. This is a public hearing on the millage rate. The chairman put out a budget with a millage rate of 6.188. We're coming off a millage rate last year of 6.528, and we have an option 2 for 6.5. You want to open this up?
Sure. Okay, I might use a little bit of this thing too. I don't need it yet, but I might use it in a minute. Okay, the millage rate, as you said, was advertised at 6.5, which was a slight decrease from last year at 6.528. We are required to hold a millage rate for the M&O. You are not required, don't have state requirements to hold a millage rate public hearing for debt service or for the fire tax. The fire tax is a special district tax. It's used specifically for a specific purpose. It was voter imposed, and that special district, in our case, includes all of Paulding, but it is a special district. So that's why we're holding this millage rate, particularly for the M&O, which funds our general fund. So what I did was I looked at comparisons with other counties, and as was mentioned earlier, this does not include the fire. I pulled this off the state website, and they do not include special districts in those numbers, so it's not included here. I sorted these by the total from the largest to the smallest and highlighted Paulding so we would know where we would fall. And this is using the rate from last year. All of these rates are from 2015 because they were published. Not everybody has adopted the 2016 rates as they're not due until September 1st. Over the past 10 years, this graph gives you in blue are the total tax levies for M&O. So, and you get your total tax levy by multiplying your digest value, your assessed value, multiplied by the millage rate. So in blue is what property tax revenues have been for the past 10 years. And you'll see that the height of that was in 08, and it's declined and then it's remained flat. And last year we saw a little bit more of a decline, and that is primarily due to the change in the millage rate from 7.25 to 6.528. The red line across the bottom is the digest value. So you can see where the digest value goes up from 2005 to 2008, and it starts to come down. 2010 is lower, 2011 is lower, continued to decline in 2012, remaining fairly flat in 2013, and began to increase in 2014. The value of a meal. That's a common question that I am asked, so I thought it would be important to put it in here. This is the value of a meal for the last 10 years, and what it is the assessed value divided by 1,000 gives you the value of a meal. So currently, today, the value is $3,773,267 is the value of one meal. And you can see, again, I highlighted the height of the value of that meal in 2008 of $4.5 million. And our total levy would be $23 million with the millage rate of 6.188 and $24 million with 6.5. And you'll see that's still significantly lower than that 08, 09 number where growth was occurring. Okay. One of the other questions, and in the property tax ads that we had that we published in the paper, we included an estimated amount. So I'm going to read this paragraph because I don't think I can make it make sense if I don't. This tentative increase will result in a millage rate of 6.5 mils, an increase of 0.312 mils, which is the difference in the 6.5 and the 6.188. The proposed tax increase for a home with a fair market value of $150,000 is approximately $18.10, and the proposed tax for the non-homestead property with a fair market value of $125 is approximately $15.60. That is different for every homeowner, household. Now, can I switch this?
Tabitha, if you, let's say you took and double that number for the house, it's $300,000. How do you do the taxes at double also?
Well, the idea is that on average, if they increase 6%, then yes, it would we did it, it would double for a $150,000 house. A lot of times we'll run $100,000, so it would be that difference for every $100,000. That doesn't work for everybody because not everybody has the exact same increase. And what you're going to see when she gets this up is we have a total residential count of 63,000. Actually, James, this might not be all residential. Is it residential or?
That's everything you sent notices to.
Okay. So of the 63,691 notices that went out, 46,000 of those, I'm going to get it, I'll move it up. It's right there. 46,000 of those saw an increase. 23,947 of those were 0 to 5%. So it's that 23,000, if they saw an increase of 5%, if you roll it back, their taxes should be identical. If they saw an increase of 2%, and then you leave the millage rate, I don't want to say this wrong. So if you saw an increase of 2%, and you roll it back, their taxes are going back or going down. For the ones that had decreases, depending on how much that decrease, so you've got 7,550, those people they saw a decrease in their value. So they may or may not, with this millage rate going at 6.5, they're still going to see a decrease because their value went down. Those values ranged. Some of them are to 6%, and some of them are significantly higher than that. So if they saw an increase of more than that average 6%, and they're part of the 23,000, the difference between 46 and the 23, they're part of that, they're going to see somewhat of an increase when they have their property values increased by more. They're going up anyway because their value went up more than the 6%. And then your millage rate's at 6.188, and so the net value is going to be that they pay more because the value went up more than that average of 6%, if I made that. Does that make sense?
Talking about the 72.2 acres.
Yes, 72.28 of that, almost 50% of that went up 5%. So if you roll it back, those people don't, that 23,000 of the 63,000 pay the exact same tax, or roughly the same tax that they paid last year by rolling it back. The other 23,000, their increases were more than 6%.
Right.
So if you roll it back, they're still going to pay a higher tax bill because rolling it back doesn't completely offset it for them. When we go through this process, we take the digest value as a whole. That's what the state does. We can't look at individuals and determine 63,000 calculations. So we take one digest. Overall, our digest increased by 5.49%, and that's what your rollback is. So anything beyond that is a property tax, advertised known as a property tax increase. However, it doesn't necessarily fall that way in every particular homeowner's instance. One thing that has been mentioned is the assessments went out. They went out at 6.528. You're not asking for anything beyond.
The assessment that they received will be the most that they will be able to pay, that they'll pay, that assessment.
Yes.
That's the top.
And all actually, what they are seeing now, anywhere we go, it just is big, a little less.
Yes, sir. And your debt service, although this is not what we're talking about, but the debt service was set at 2.22, and it's been rolled back a little bit, not quite entirely, but to 2.07. So it's a slight decrease from what the assessment
So they're
says.
gonna
And
see a
the
little
state is
decrease
also
there.
decreasing
Anyway,
theirs.
any way we do it at this point.
It's less than the assessment.
Basically, if we take everybody's assessment that they got in the mail, everybody's gonna pay a couple bucks less. Don't know how many couple bucks, but everybody's gonna pay a couple bucks less than
From the assessment,
from the
yes.
assessment.
James, you have a moment to come to the lectern. When we look at property values and your team is out, how often is every parcel looked at? Now, you look at commercial differently than you look at households. So let's just say we're looking at households. How often are they, I guess, where they go out and make a visit and they're reassessed?
We reassess every year. That does not mean we inspect all properties every year. We're required, or we're recommended by the Georgia Department of Revenue to physically be on each property at least once every 3 years. We're not making that. We don't have the staff to physically be on all of these properties. That's one of the reasons why we've incorporated new technology to be a little more efficient in trying to get around to some of these properties. So we also go out and inspect properties typically multiple times during the construction process. We get all permits as they're issued, so we're inspecting those as you go along. If you have a change, you notify our office that there's a change, we'll do an inspection. If you file an appeal, we'll do an inspection. If you just come in and call us and say, I want somebody to come out, we'll go out and inspect it. So we, a lot of times people want us to come out each and every year, and we do. So, but we physically go on each property. Our goal is every 3 years, but right now we're not making that. We've got some areas in the county that we're probably 4 years. So every time we send an assessment notice, we're updating all of our values based on the current market conditions from the previous 12 months. And we have to meet certain statutory guidelines, or otherwise our taxpayers become penalized by, we're penalized by, if we don't meet the sales ratio analysis, we can have public utility withholdings. We can be assessed fines and penalties through the Department of Revenue. So there's some meat in the United States.
Okay. I get calls and they say, well, you know, my property value is so-and-so, but my neighbor's is so-and-so. And it's like, well, I'm not over the tax assessor, nor will they ever allow me to be. But all we ever do is set your budget. So from there, it has to do with any improvements that they've made on their particular property, or?
That's probably one of our biggest questions is I have house plan X in X neighborhood, and that house should be that way every single time, no matter if it's 15 years down the road. That's simply not the case. There's no two houses built the same. Some of them have the base model, some of them have additional extras in that are built, with the construction. Some people finish basements out and never permit them. I mean, they're doing all sorts of things, and then you go through the typical life cycle of a home where you're getting roof replacements, exterior windows, siding, this, that, and the other. So you've got depreciation elements that come into it as well. So no two homes are going to carry the same number throughout its history.
Thank you. You don't have any questions of that?
Thank
Any
you, James.
questions more of Tabitha? The public hearing is now open, and we're open for public comment. Yes, sir. Come forward.
This is a little bit unusual that we hold these things this close together, not having an opportunity to talk, not being able to read the fine print. I gotta ask some questions. Does this proposed increase in the budget provide a pay increase for all county employees?
No, sir.
Who is excluded?
Well, do I understand?
It doesn't include any.
Who has been excluded? What county employees have been excluded?
It
from
doesn't.
pay increase?
It doesn't include any pay increases.
This budget,
That's right.
the new budget,
That's correct.
does not include any pay increases
That's
for
correct.
anybody.
That's
Well,
correct. It includes an
Yes and no.
adjustment
There are night shift change
and on-call for public
and
safety.
on-call
But that's it.
in a more dangerous situation or harder to fill post. I guess technically you could look at this as a pay increase for those individuals that would accept that other responsibility.
There's no pay increase for the firemen or the sheriff's department. They don't get any money increase in that budget.
That
When
money,
you say sheriff's department, there is
that's an incentive.
night shift, right, incentive, and it is a on-call. It's, Sheriff, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a little more dangerous and it's harder to fill those positions in your daytime.
I won't say it's any more dangerous. My plan was with the night shift differentials to try to keep some of the people that's got more experience on the night shift when they're training the younger guys, because there's really no.
Come up, you can't be recorded back there.
I'm sorry.
That's a good question.
It is. My point on trying to get pay differential for the night shift guys is so that we can keep some of our older guys with more experience on the night shifts, because as they go on the night shifts, everybody wants to go back to day shift for pretty much a better life. I won't say it's any safer days and nights. Of course, our job is probably not the safest in the world right now. We want to do a pay differential so we can keep people with more experience on the night shift, and that's where most of our young guys go to get trained.
Mr. Coggins, you're back up at the lectern, but you understand where we're coming from there?
Well, I guess I am confused now, because I'm reading on social media and everything that one of the reasons for this increase in the millage rate is to provide for a pay increase for the county workers and the firemen and everything else. And that's, I guess I'm wrong there, huh?
Wrong.
No pay increase for them other than what he's talking about.
Correct.
Now, there's a promotion, right, that goes with a little increase that I know of.
There's a couple of
But for
promotions
the
that are changing job descriptions.
For the proposed increase that this meeting is being held for now, none of that money is gonna go to a increase in pay for the people. Am I right?
Right. None of the money goes for an increase in pay. Gary's got a different pay schedule that he would like to see for the people that work the third shift, I call it, the night shift. And then a little different pay schedule for some folks that are on call. in his department.
I understand.
We've got some new positions, a couple new positions. Gary's got a couple new positions, which is gonna help him to be able to fill those positions.
In this one.
In this, with hopefully, right, with some folks in his department. And then, like I said earlier today, it's not, our working on the millage rate is not just for this year. It's for something that we hope to be able to help us not only this year, but next year and the future years to come. That's what we're trying to work on. So it's not just this year. But as far as across the board, no. There's several things that we need to do that I want to see us do, and one of them is a salary study that we've talked about for the last 2-3 years. It hasn't been done yet. So that's something that we need to do. But unless we take care of the millage rate, and unless we take care of what we need to for the future years coming, I'm not going to say there's no reason to do a salary study, but if we don't have what we need to be able to facilitate what the salary study shows, there's no reason to do it. But I think we need to do it, and I think it's important, and it's something that all of us up here have talked about.
There was money appropriated for a salary study, right? And then it went back to the general fund until it's done.
Yes, sir, it's just not been, it'll be, it's just not included in this budget. To go back and do it in a new year, which we're in now, FY 2017, it has to be added into the budget again.
That has both budgets, neither one of them have. The option 2 or the chairman.
That's correct.
Right.
For 2017, it's not included.
Correct.
We did a look at this through Human Resources for the Sheriff's Department and did some adjustments. I know we worked with Gary a couple or 3 years ago when we looked at starting pay and various other things. But we are doing a salary study.
Well, I guess I get more confused when I start talking about taxes, and it always seems like it comes out a little bit different. But when, I forget last year or a couple of years ago, because the valuations were down and we needed to pay some more money, we raised the fire tax levy. Raised it to 3.1. I think we raised it 1 mil, maybe more than that.
We raised it a little, you're right, Mr. Coggins. We went from 2 mills, we raised it up a little bit more than 3, and that was for building the fire department for future fire departments that we're going to open, to hire more staff, and anything that would be done as far as any kind of difference in pay in the fire department would come out of that fire tax. But we did that to build the fire department up for the future, because we've got some other fire departments that want to open up soon. One that should have already been opened up out 278, out close to the airport. And so that's part of what we did there, was to kind of build that fund up and be ready to be able to do what we need to do.
That wasn't my understanding one time, because what my understanding was, and I forget what year it was, 2 or 3 years ago, it was to give them a pay increase because we hadn't had one, plus what you're talking about. And I guess my point is this: the valuations had went back up. They had to have that money because the valuations had went down and they was collecting less money. And they had to have more money. When the valuations went back up, and I know that they're not required to do it according to law. They're not required to do it according to law. But when the valuations went back up, they didn't reduce them things, Pat. They had a tax increase on us.
You talk about
They are collecting more money now than they were when they went up the mill in 1 mil point 1. They're collecting a whole lot more money because of the valuation, plus the additional people that moved into this county. And what are they doing with that money? Is it just building the fund up? Where's the money going? You're not giving your people a raise. What are you doing with the money? all the equipment is paid for under SPOS. All the buildings are paid for under SPOS. The new $500,000 fire truck was paid for under SPOS.
Tabitha, you want to answer that?
Sure. The fire station fire department is a growing department in the county. And they add at least 9 firemen a year. And it takes at least 9 to operate one station. They have to add them in advance of that station opening so that they can have them in operation trained so that they're ready to stand on their own, basically, when the fire station opens. So as we have more, what we have to do, when we went to 3.1, we used 3.1 as a future target, because if we didn't, we would have to come back to an increase every single year. That's difficult when you consider escrows and when you consider planning, because if you think your property taxes are going to be X amount, and every year we come back and say, well, we're going to need more because you've increased 9 positions, you have additional operating expenses for this new station, and rather than doing that, we did put a number in, a 3.1 in, and that is for future growth. We are spending the budget for the fire station does not use all of that at this particular point, because, and it does add to fund
There's a
balance.
surplus there
It is adding to
now. How
fund
much
balance.
is that surplus?
I did not bring that number with me. I'll have to look and see, but I'll be glad to give it to
Can
you.
you furnish that number tonight at 6?
I can at 6.
Well,
But you will use that as your fire department grows. And every single year, they're adding you, and that, they have ISO standards, which we've talked about a lot, to bring your insurance down is the idea. And the faster that they're able to grow that fire station, the faster that the citizens see the benefit of that.
I know that was a very good selling point they had when they passed it, but my insurance has not gone back this one.
Well, our ISO rating has gone up, it has improved.
Yeah, our ISO rating is improved, true, but
And if you,
it didn't come down. I don't think anybody in this room would say my homeowner's insurance has come down.
okay, well, that's a discussion maybe for another
So
day.
depending on where you live.
It does depend on where you
Well,
live.
I'm gonna just wrap my point up there. If we need the money, I support you. If there's nothing in that budget that can be cut to provide this money, I'm gonna support you. There's $375,000 in that budget that was forced on you four by the guy in the middle. You should tear up the IGA agreement. When you're talking about promises, everybody in this county was promised that that airport would not cost us, quote, 1 red cent. Since you have taken over, you have taken it away from the regular budget process. They can't say anything about that. You have took it away from the regular budget process and the control of those commissioners prior to them taking office and giving it to the airport authority. I don't think that we should be paying any money to them. It should be a self-sufficient place. If we'd have had reputable people running that, that would be paying for itself today. The paperwork was laid out there to do that when we built that airport. The IBA is totally out of control again. again, Mr. Chairman, and you are a part of that IBA. You have a vote on that IBA. I don't know why any of you commissioners would consider even giving them the IBA, and I don't know how much of you did give them this year, or if you have. I don't believe you should give them 1 red cent. The reason I say that is they won't even pay you what they owe you. And I know we got a lawsuit that says they're going to. But that's our money, and why raise taxes on us when they're not doing what they have, they should be doing. And at the same time, you're gonna give them some more money to do it again this year. Don't make no sense to me. Thank you.
Was that not, I'm gonna ask a question, and I'm just asking. I know what you're asking. You're saying why, when we're giving that money to them, and not,
And we were promised that it wasn't gonna cost us a red cent.
are we bound legally as a board, if I'm not mistaken, to do that? Are we or are
I
we
don't
not?
understand what you're asking.
Are we bound legally to give the IBA money?
IDA is a different
Airport,
item.
airport authorities, what is
You're talking about airport.
Yeah.
Airport Authority or the IBA, I don't think you're bound legally to give either one of them
Airport authorities and IGA
For the IGA.
No, he's not saying IGA, he's saying,
He said,
And
and that's
that's
why
what he
it's 2 different questions
Okay.
entirely. One is whether or not you're gonna fund the IDA, and to be honest, I
It's not
don't
either
know, I don't
way.
think we did that.
In the intergovernmental agreement that you're talking about between the county and the airport authority,
Question.
there. I asked y'all January of 15 not to fund them.
not to fund who?
IGA, the
IGA?
IGA.
The IGA, the airport authority.
There's a legal contract to that.
I asked you not to do it. I don't believe that he had the right to take a lame duck, commission and pass a law or anything that says that y'all have to, abide by that budget. I don't believe it's right. If it is, then y'all 5 right here can sit here and say for the next 20 years, we're gonna make the rest of the commissioners there pay for whatever. I asked you to carry that to the Supreme Court of Paulding County and let them make that decision. You've done everything except take that.
And that very well may be an option, but I don't know.
It is an
There's
option.
been court
It was
cases.
an option then, it's an option now.
KB, there's been court cases, Monty may be able to address this better than me, that people have tried that, they've lost every time. Is that correct? The 40s.
We have researched,
Yeah, we
there's a
did.
specific
I've
performance
heard
clause
that.
in that contract.
Try it. That's our money.
I hear you, Mr. Coggins, and I agree with an awful lot that you're saying. It frustrates me as much as it frustrates you and others. We do not have any money in there for the IBA, Industrial Building Authority. We took it out of last year's budget, and both the chairman's proposed budget and our budget does not have it in there.
You know, they're not gonna get a penny.
It wouldn't be any different than Propeller by not fulfilling their obligation.
Yes.
We'd be on the same page with them. And none of us here voted, nobody except David, and David happened to be here at that time, voted for the IGA. We sort of walked into that, and there it was, but it was legally binding.
Tony, that guy right there, if he wanted something, he would do it, and just like he's done it, and make y'all file the lawsuits. He's done it. Y'all sitting right there on 4 or 5 lawsuits now, where that guy said, I'm gonna do this, done it, and said, now do something about it. Take the $375,000 away from him.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coggins.
Anyone else wishing to speak in the public hearing? I will declare this public hearing closed. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.